right. So we're going to take a look at Barbarian to see what species goes best with this class for D&D 2024 edition, or whatever you might want to call it. So we have... let's maybe shrink this down just a little bit. There you go. Yeah, that's better. So we got the Barbarian information here. So let's take a look at the species. Excuse me. All right. And let's take a look at Aasimar, in case you're not familiar with what Aasimar is. Pronounce Aasimar. Aasimar. Mortals who carry a spark of the upper planes with their souls. Here are their traits. You can pick either medium or small, which is interesting because I can't remember if you can do this in the older ones or not. Is it in which book was it? I feel like it's not in a book that I own. Like, I think it's like in Elemental Evils or something like that, if I remember correctly. Let's see. Oh, no, it is in here. Monsters of the Multiverse. All right. Oh, Bugbear. Bugbear. That's such a fun one to do. No, okay. Originally, you can do medium or small. You choose the size when you select this race. So that's interesting. But this actually gives guidance on which size, like about how tall they can be with that. So that's actually pretty different from what we have here. So, okay, I'm going to leave that out just in case I want to refer back to it. They go 30 feet, so pretty standard. They have resistance to necrotic damage and radiant damage. Now, here's why I think this is a very good one, especially if you do... hey, JT, what's up? Especially if you do Barbarian Path of the Wild Heart. Because at Path of the Wild Heart... you can pretty much decide which one of these you want to use when you rage, which is a departure from the previous subclass, Path Totem Warrior. You had to pick one at level 3 and choose and keep that one. But now, when you rage, you get to pick one. What they had change in 2024 that is different from the 2014 subclass is that in 2014, if you're raging using Path of the Bear, then you would actually get resistance to all damage except psychic. Now, if you read this, you see that this is actually departure because now it's resistance to every damage except force, necrotic, psychic, and radiant. So pretty much it kind of kept it to you have resistance to all physical and elemental damage. But if you're an Aasimar, then you get resistance to necrotic and radiant automatically. So this is actually a good one if you're wanting to up that resistance from damage to kind of fill in those gaps there. So, dumb question: is there a multiverse in D&D? That is not a dumb question, and yeah, there is. Actually, they talk about this a lot. Excuse me. Oh, you got your wisdom tooth removed today? I'm sorry, JT. That is not fun. Anyways, oh, you know what? And I don't know why, but YouTube comments are not showing up on the stream, but there are YouTube comments. So I'm going to have to try to figure out how to fix that. But yeah, there is a multiverse in D&D. So there are different settings that you can do. You know, the most common one, or the most popular one rather, is Forgotten Realms. But there's also Greyhawk. That was the original one that they've actually pushed in the DMG for 2024. There's Ravenloft, which is where Curse of Strahd is located at, or it takes place in. A lot of people do their own homebrew, but the Dungeons & Dragons team have said that D&D is like a multiverse where whenever you play your game, it's even if it's in an established setting like Forgotten Realms, then it is something where you are creating like a multiverse in that realm, basically. So everyone can play Forgotten Realms, but they can make their own tweaks, so they can make their own changes. Even if it's something that's like established lore, at your table, you can change it however you need to or however you want to in order to do that. So there's definitely a multiverse in D&D, yeah. Thanks, Steven. I mean, I still saw your comment. That wasn't the problem. It just wasn't showing up in the feed. So I just need to go and fix that because obviously there's something missing with it there. So, but yeah, so with Aasimar, you get resistance to necrotic damage and radiant damage. So whether you're raging or not, you already got that. Dark Vision is a range of 60 feet. Healing Hands, as a magic action, you can touch a creature and roll a number of d4s equal to your proficiency bonus. So right off the bat, you can have 2d4s basically and heal yourself or another creature. Excuse me. And then the creature regains a number of hit points equal to the total rolled, and then you can't do that again until you finish a long rest. So that's actually pretty neat to be able to do that just as part of like a species trait here. You know the light cantrip. So for Barbarian, if they're raging, they're not going to be able to do magic. So Healing Hands is not something they can do during the rage. Same thing with the light cantrip, but it's something that you can kind of use outside of combat as a way to heal yourself without having to use, like a healing spell from somebody else in the party or using a potion of healing. So let's see here. Celestial Revelation. When you reach character level 3, you can transform as a bonus action using one of the options below. You choose each time you transform, and then it lasts for a minute or until you end it, and then once you transform, you can't do it until you do a long rest. So with these, let's see here, you can deal once on each of your turns before the transformation ends. You can deal extra damage to one target when you deal damage to it with an attack or spell. The extra damage equals your proficiency bonus, and the extra damage type is either necrotic for necrotic shroud or radiant for heavenly wings and inner radiance. So here are the transformation options. You can have 2 spectral wings sprout from your back temporarily, and then you have a fly speed equal to your speed. Or you can do inner radiance, which allows you to pretty much shine bright light in a 10-foot radius and dim light for an additional 10 feet. At the end of each of your turns, each creature within it takes radiant damage equal to your proficiency bonus. So that looks like... Okay, yeah. So this is something that they were talking about earlier up here. So the necrotic shroud, what they were talking about here as well too. Creatures other than your allies within 10 feet must succeed on a charisma saving throw. DC 8 plus your charisma modifier and proficiency bonus. So I have the frightened condition until the end of your next turn. This is actually really good. This is a good one for Barbarian. So in 14, a Barb could use a magic item or feature like that while raging. No, that's not a change from 2014. Barbarians were, whenever they're in a rage, they cannot use any sort of magic. Like, even if they were concentrating something before they rage, as soon as they rage, concentration ends, and they can't cast any any magic while they're raging. Now, let's say a very common thing that happens is the Barbarian Druid multi-class. You can wild shape and still rage. That's a big thing. That's why a lot of people think that's really cool to wild shape as a bear, and then you get the raging bonus and all that. But the other thing is, if you cast some sort of spell before you rage that like lasts, it doesn't require concentration, right? So like for 2024, Bark Skin used to be in 2014 a concentration spell. But in 2024, they changed it to where now it is just a magic action to cast it. And I think it lasts for like an hour or something like that. We have to look it up and see. But it boosts your AC to a 17. So you can cast that on yourself, then rage, and then you still get that magic bonus for the armor class. So, yeah, I thought it was specifically spells. It is spells. Oh, magic item. Sorry. Yeah, you're right. Magic item is a whole different thing. So that is still the case. Let's see here. Let's go back up to core Barbarian traits. When we look at rage, it still says no concentration or spells. So it specifically says those things. So it's not magic, but concentration or spells. So if you have a magic weapon, you can still use that. That's not a problem. It's just you cannot cast any spells and you can't maintain concentration while you're in rage. So, but yeah, this is a really good one, especially to kind of make up for if you're doing Wild Heart. To make up for that change that they made from the 2014. This is a good way to get that back in there to gain that resistance to necrotic and radiant damage. You're still not going to get that resistance for force damage, but this is a really good one. And you get to heal yourself outside of combat if you want, or while you're not raging rather. And then you get these nice little added bonus when you get to level 3 as well too. So Yeah. So you could use Healing Hands. And for this one, no, because it requires a magic action. That's a good question, actually. Now I think about it in terms of how it's being said. I guess it's technically not a spell. Oh, that's interesting. Because it specifically says spell, and just because this is a magic action doesn't mean that's a spell. It takes a magic action to cast a spell, but this is technically not a spell. So yeah, actually, you're right. You can actually do this while you're raging if you wanted to. The only caveat to that is to maintain your rage, you have to use a bonus action to extend your rage or attack or cause a creature to do a saving throw, right? So you could definitely do that. You just pretty much like spend your turn healing somebody and then extending your rage at that point. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it's not a spell, so it's technically not a spell. Light cantrip, you definitely can't. But this one, yeah, it's not. It does not say spell. It just says magic action. So it does take your whole action to do that. So that's something that you could do. So yeah, you're right. That's why it is good to look at the specifics there. But yeah, maintain concentration and you can't cast spells. It's not a spell. It doesn't say it's a spell. So yeah. Yeah, so that's actually, you can do that in combat. Good call. No, so in 2024, they got rid of taking damage, actually. Let's see here. Duration. See, make an attack roll against the enemy, force an enemy to make a saving throw, or take a bonus action to extend your rage. So they actually got rid of that. That's 2014. If you took damage, it extends it. But now in 2024, you have to either make an attack, force the enemy to make a saving throw. So if you're doing grappling or shoving, that's forcing them to make a saving throw, or something else that would cause them to make a saving throw, or just use your bonus action to extend your rage. So, but yeah, so in the language here is if your rage is still active on your next turn, you can extend it. Let's see, it lasts each time your rage is extended. It lasts until the end of your next turn. So I do appreciate that they clarified this language here, because there was always that question in 2014 about when does that rage like start or begin or end and all that. So they kind of clarified that a little bit here, where it ends at the end of your next turn. So, which is good. It helps clarify that sort of thing. Because people are like, if you take your rage but then don't attack, like, do you lose it on that same turn? Because of the way it was worded. So they clear that up here. So, but yeah, good call, Sam. That is not a spell. So technically, you could do that while you're raging. It's just that's going to be your full action. So unless you have something else that allows you to use a bonus action to attack or extend, or I'm sorry, to attack or force a saving throw, then you're going to be using your bonus action to extend your rage, which you could definitely do. Is you just go around without attacking anybody unless opportunity attack comes up. So, Dragonborn, my favorite species of all time. They're still medium size, 30 feet. What's interesting is that in 2014, we got a Dragonborn species, and then in Fizban's Treasury of Dragons, we actually got some variant species, I think is what they called it. Let me double check and make sure here, because I know there's like sub races and then variant races that they had here, but draconic races, yeah, let's see what they call it here. Yeah, I don't know. No, I mean, I would have to, like, draconic races present variant Dragonborn race options. Yep, that's right. So these are considered variant Dragonborn race options, species options, and they got chromatic, gem, and metallic. What's really cool about this is that a lot of this that they had in here, they added gem. Gem is brand new. For Dragonborn type, but they added something that you could do in addition to your breath weapon. Chromatic Dragonborn allowed you to have chromatic warding, which allows you to... You can channel your draconic energy to protect yourself. You become immune to the damage type. So that's actually pretty powerful. And you can only do it once per long rest. For Chromatic Dragonborn, that was something I've actually thought about doing because I think that was pretty cool. With Gem Dragonborn, you actually get Gem Flight, which allows you to fly for a minute. So that's something that they brought into 2024. But you also got resistance to... no, I mean, that's every Dragonborn. You get resistance to that damage type of your breath weapon or your, Gem Ancestry. But Psionic Mind, where you can send telepathic messages to a creature 30 feet. And then Metallic Dragonborn, they added 2 Metallic Breath weapon options, which is Enervating Breath, which allows you to try to force somebody to be incapacitated if they get hit with it, or Repulsion Breath, which push people 20 feet away and knock them prone. So I do like these variant options that give you some additional things here, but the breath weapon was still dictated by you either did a cone or you did a straight line. Be a weapon attacking it. Yeah, and that was the other thing. Who wants to be a Dragonborn anyways? I do. But yeah, making breath weapon and attack. Yeah, so that was the other change as well too, because in 2014, it was pretty much your whole action if you use your breath weapon. But in Fizzbands, they did change the language to say that it can replace one of your attacks, and that's the same thing that we got in 2024 as well too. So, so for Dragonborn, same thing. You got Draconic Ancestry, which tells you what kind of breath weapon you can get and what kind of damage type you can get resistance from as well too. So that part hasn't changed. They did not include like chromatic, gem, or metallic in here. Excuse me. So that was something that was a change that they put in here that they didn't incorporate from the Fizzbands Treasury Dragons. So I think either way you go with this, there's pros and cons, right? Because they did improve the base Dragonborn species here by allowing you to choose either a 15-foot cone or 30-foot line. You get to choose every time you use your breath weapon. Excuse me. And that's not something that they had in Fizzbands. It was already predetermined if you were doing a cone or a straight line for the most part. But we do get dark vision. Fizzbands did not have that. We do have dark vision with Dragonborn right now, so that is a good change. I could see DMs maybe doing something where they allow a variant to where you use this as a base, and then you get like that extra feature from Fizzbands to add onto it. It'd be really hard to do that in like D&D Beyond because again, then you have to make like a variant species, and it gets a little bit weird. So, let's see here. Can't fit in a warren, hit your head on the ceiling all the time, and well, big target. Yeah, you're right. And then Draconic Flight. So same thing with what was it? Metallic, I think, had. You get at level 5, you get to fly as a bonus action for 10 minutes. So actually, that's longer than last time. So, so I think this is a good one for Barbarians if you want to do more things. In terms of tactical fighting, because you got the breath weapon, you get the resistance, so not as much as, not as much as the Aasimar, because Aasimar gets resistance to 2 types, necrotic and radiant, and that's not an option here. And all the options here, if you do Wild Heart, if you did Path of the Bear and get resistance, you're already kind of negating that part, so that wouldn't be a good subclass to use. But this would still be a good one for, like, Berserker or, Path of the Zealot. All the other ones, I think Wild Heart would not be a good one for this one, but all the other ones would still be a good one because of all these things they have. Now, Dark Vision, Aasimar didn't get Dark Vision, did they? No, they had Dark Vision. That's what I thought. Okay. I just couldn't remember reading it, but yeah, so they have that. So, yeah, so this is a good one. I think it depends on which subclass you take, because this is a really good one for really any of them, but it's definitely a good complement to Wild Heart with the Aasimar. Dragonborn, I think, is a really good tactical one, but I think Aasimar is probably winning out on this one for sure. So, Gem for flight. Was it gem? Yeah, I couldn't remember if it's gem or metallic because I know, or chromatic because metallic was the one that did the two different kinds of metallic breath weapons. Because I played that one in a game and I really liked that. Okay, so let's take a look at dwarf. So they are still medium, 30 feet. That is a difference because they were 25 feet in the previous one. They have a dark vision range of 120 feet, so that got increased. They do have resistance to poison damage, so that's a nice little thing to have as a barbarian. And you have advantage on saving throws to make to avoid or end the poisoned condition. Poison always gets weird because it gets really easily confused when you talk about poison damage and poison condition because they're two very different things. But yeah, your hit point maximum increased by 1, and it increases again by 1 whenever you gain a level. So this actually kind of embeds the tough feat for you. So this is a good one for Barbarian as well too, because then you can take on a different background with a different origin feat because you're already getting this essentially. Because with the tough feat, this is pretty much what you're getting here. I think it's worded a little bit different. But yeah, I mean, this helps a lot. So mini tough, half a tough, they stack. Yeah, they could stack as well too. Yeah, so you could definitely still do that, but you don't have to. Yeah, your hit point maximum increases by 1 and increases by 1 again. Yeah, because I think the language with tough is like it's twice per level or whatever. You get 2 additional 1 per level that you have. So, and then stone cunning as a bonus action, you gain tremor sense, which basically allows you to like pretty much locate something on the same surface through the earth or through stone. With a range of 60 feet for 10 minutes. Must be on a stone surface. I never... I think this is cool for campaigns that you do a lot of, exploration and stuff like that. I'm just like, okay, I feel like this is not one that's going to come up unless the DM, specifically plans for that sort of thing. So, but yeah, this is a good one. I think you get some benefits with this species that really helps out, especially dwarven toughness. And if you want to go that route of, of getting the tough feat, you can. But the nice thing is you don't have to, because then you can pick a background that gives you something else like soldier or guard, right? Those are the ones where I think gives you alert or savage attacker that allows you to, really get some really cool abilities as part of your origin that will benefit Barbarian for sure. Okay, Elf. So they still have the different, are they calling it, grants a certain kinds, So I'm looking to see what they're calling these. If these are... Yeah, they're not really calling them subspecies or anything from here that I can see. They lost this ability. It was shapeshift. At will, the elves retreated to the Feywild, where their sorrow was deepened by the plane's influence. Over time, curiosity led many of them to explore the planes of existence, including worlds in the material plane. So this is actually kind of how they explain why some other species in the monster manual got changed from humanoid to something else. So that kind of makes sense how they're clarifying that, or explaining that, rather. Elves have pointed ears and lack facial and body hair, so that hasn't changed. Okay, so Drow just kind of gives you some background on the, whatever they call it now, subspecies or variant. I guess it's not really variant because this is something that you would pick as part of the species here. But yeah, so they give you a little bit more details there. All right, medium, 30 feet. Dark vision, 60 feet. Let's see here. Oh, yeah, and then the lineage. That's what it's called. Thank you. Okay, lineage. So whatever you pick down here, that's what you get as part of your lineage. When your characters reach level 3 and 5, you get more things here. You always have that spell prepared. You gain an advantage on saving throws you make to avoid or in the charm condition. Proficiency in insight, perception, or survival skill. That's not bad for Barbarian, honestly. Because I think with Barbarian, the traits that they start you off with is animal handling, athletics, intimidation, nature, perception, or survival. So perception is on both of those, but everything else is different. So this gives you another... Oh, wait, perception and survival. Yeah. So this would be a nice way for you to pick like insight as a way to get more proficiency in other skills. The trance, you can finish a long rest in 4 hours if you spend those hours in trance-like meditation, during which you retain consciousness. And then for the lineages here, W. Your dark vision is 120 feet. And then you know the dancing lights cantrip. And then level 3, Fey Fire. One action. And then darkness. Yeah. So again, you want to be able to use these during raging, which is a bummer. But I get it. You don't want to get it too powerful. Wood Elf, speed increases to 35 feet. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, and then that's it. Yeah, so this one probably proficiency and perception will let you do even better angry perception checks. I know, right? Yeah. Now it just says you have proficiency in these things. So if you already have proficiency in it, I don't think it goes up to expertise unless it says otherwise. So unless I missed something in the details somewhere, but I don't think, I think it has to specifically says if you already have proficiency, then you get expertise in it. So yeah, so you would definitely have to use the insight if you pick these two, or, you know, you could pick like any of these other ones and then pick perception or survival from the elven lineage. But, yeah, overall, this is not one that would be great for Barbarian, I don't think. I mean, there are some like nice small things that kind of gives you a little bit of help. I don't think it's as good as Aasimar or Dragonborn for sure. All right, let's check out Gnome. I've never played a Gnome, so I'm kind of curious to take a look at this and think about this for Barbarian. You are small, 30 feet. You get dark vision of 60 feet. You have advantage on intelligence, wisdom, and charisma saving throws. That would actually be really good for Barbarian because their saving throws are based, are primarily in strength and constitution for the proficiencies. So they get a nice boon to that, but advantage on these that, you know, if you're playing Barbarian, a lot of times one of these are probably going to be your dump stats. That would actually be really helpful. So that's actually, you know, a really cool feature to have as a Barbarian if you're playing a Gnome Barbarian. If you're part of a lineage that grants you supernatural abilities, you are part of a lineage that grants you supernatural abilities, choose one of the following options. Whichever you choose, intelligence, wisdom, or charisma is your spellcasting ability for the spells you cast. As a force gnome, you can cast a minor illusion cantrip. You always have speak with animal spells prepared. That's actually a pretty cool one. I think if you were to do... Let's go to... Yeah, see, so again, Wild Heart, that one probably wouldn't be the best one because you already get speak with animals. Now, there is a caveat to that, right? Because this is as a path of the Wild Heart. This is actually speak with animals as a ritual. This would actually be a spell that you can use, and so that would be a lot quicker, so you don't have to do 10 minutes of casting. So that's something that I think Wild Heart path could still be an option if you're wanting to maybe have two ways to do speak with animals. And and have like those timing options if you want. You can cast without a spell slot, number of times equal to a proficiency bonus. Yeah. So yeah, so I mean, if you want to be able to do speak with animals a little bit quicker, that's still a good one. Because you still get beast sense, so it's not like it completely negates it. You still get beast sense and use that as well. So, hey, don't trust the gnomes. Remember what they did to the kobold god. I don't know what they did. I don't think I know that lore. Hit us with that lore. Rock gnome, mending and prestidigitation cantrips, prestidigitation cantrips. I don't know if I've heard anybody say consistently twice in a row. You can spend 10 minutes casting prestidigitation to create a tiny clockwork device. As a bonus action, let's see here. If the chosen effect has options within it, you choose one of the options from the device when you create it. For example, if you choose the spell's Ignite Extinguish effect, you determine whether the device ignites or extinguishes fire. I mean, that's if you want to do something that's a little bit more broad in terms of what you can do as a barbarian. Like, I think that'd be interesting. I still don't think it's probably the best. You know, I don't think it's going to be in the top 3 for me in terms of species that works well with barbarian. So, yeah, prestidigitation. All right, Goliath, Grog, Strong Jaws species here. Medium, but they're about 7 to 8 feet tall. Their speed is 35 feet, so that is a good benefit as a Goliath already. You do get giant ancestry. You choose one of the following benefits: a supernatural boon from your ancestry. You can use the chosen benefit a number of times equals to your proficiency bonus, and you get it back when you finish a long rest. So you get to pick one of these when you create your characters. As a bonus action, you can magically teleport up to 30 feet to an unoccupied space you can see. So going back to what Sam was saying before, this is still a good one because it's not a spell. Right? It just says you magically teleport, but the word is it doesn't say you could cast bonus or a cast Misty Step or whatever. So I think you can still use this. That's how I would interpret it. Magically teleport doesn't necessarily mean that you're casting a spell for this. So this is actually a good one for Barbarian. Maybe not Path of the World Tree, because World Tree allows you to do that. At a certain point. Level 14, so you would be waiting a while before you get that. Unless it's somewhere else here. Yeah, that's for enemies. I remember that. Vitality search. Yeah. Yeah, so actually that would still be a good one for World Tree. Fire Giant. When you hit attack, a target with an attack roll deal damage to it, you can also deal 1d10 fire damage. Yes, I absolutely love that. So you get to add more damage to it. Especially if you're doing Path of the Giant, my favorite subclass for Barbarian. Frost Giant, when you hit a target with an attack roll deal damage, you can deal 1d6 cold damage to that target and reduce its speed by 10 feet until the start of your next turn. So that's also like a nice, cool little tactic one. Not as much damage possibility as fire, but it does add a little bit more to it, especially if you're doing, weapon master properties. You could definitely, do some crazy, crazy things to an enemy by using that as well too. When you hit a large or smaller creature with an attack roll, deal damage to it, you can give that target the prone condition. So this is automatic. So you could use Cleave with Great Axe and then use this, again, equals to your proficiency bonus, and then you get those back at a long rest. So if you had a Maul, they would have to do a saving throw. But this would be automatic, but you won't be able to do it every attack. You can only do it, equals to your proficiency bonus per long rest. When you take damage, you can use a reaction to roll a d12, add your constitution modifier to the number rolled, and reduce the damage by that total. That's a good one. When Storm Giant, when you take damage from a creature within 60 feet of you, you can take a reaction to deal 1d8 thunder damage to that creature. So yeah, so this one is definitely geared towards being able to be a barbarian and do more damage as a barbarian. A large form, starting at level 5, you can change your size to large as a bonus action. So this would not be a great one for Path of the Giant, because that's like its feature when you get to level 3 Path of the Giant is you can turn large when you rage. But that's still a useful one when you're not in rage, right? So if you want to be a large size, but you don't want to expend your rage to be able to do that, even though it lasts 10 minutes, you could do this instead. This transformation lasts for 10 minutes or until you end it. For that duration, you have advantage on strength checks, and your speed increases by 10 feet. See, when you're raging, you already get advantage on strength checks, but when your speed increases by 10 feet, that's also really good, because now you're talking about 45 feet, and what is it? Is it Barbarian that does this now? There is a feature for Barbarian. Level 7, Instinctive Pounce. Okay, so at level 7, when you rage, you can move up to half your speed as part of your bonus action. So when you rage, you still have to use a bonus action to do this, though, so that's not going to really help initially. But if you use a bonus action and you are already large, at level 7, and then you rage, then that means that you can go up to 65-ish feet when you rage as just part of your movement. So that's crazy. Goliath growth and large. Yeah. No, there's still like other advantages. Oh, just go kaiju. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, this is kind of bridging that Path of the Giant. I mean, obviously, because this is coming from a giant lineage. But you can still use, I feel like there's still a lot of benefits to be able to use Goliath and Path of the Giant, because you can use this outside of combat, and you can use it inside of combat as well too, and can give you a nice little boost for your speed if you wanted to as well too. It might be redundant at that point to do it, but if you want to have that, I'm going to go 65 feet when I rage, then that'd be a really cool way to do that. Powerful build, you have advantage on any ability check you make to end the grapple condition. You also count as one size larger when determining your carrying capacity. So, yeah. So, yeah, Goliath is still going to be a great one for Barbarian. That's probably in the top 3 as well, too. Halfling. All right, let's talk about Halfling. Here's the thing. Like, I get why it has some of these traits, but I'm also like, this is, I don't know. For example, let's go with each one. Halfling now has 30 feet. Used to be 25, now it's 30 feet. They're small, 2 to 3 feet, okay? They have advantage on saving throws to avoid or end the frightened condition. Halfling nimbleness, you can move through a space of any creature that is a size larger than you, but you can't stop in the same space. So you don't have to take, difficult terrain to go through an ally if they are medium or larger. You just can't stop in the same space as them. That's also enemies as well, too, because it says any creature. So if you are going up a creature that is medium or larger, you can go through their space, and that shouldn't be a problem. Here's the thing. Luck. When you roll a 1 on the D20 of a D20 test, you can reroll the die. You must use the new roll. That one I feel like just gets abused sometimes, because then you just I mean, it's only on a 1, but yeah, it's harder for you to roll a critical fail at that point too. So even as small, take that, gnomes. Right? I'm assuming, Sam, this is that delay that we were talking about before. Naturally stealthy, you can take the hide action even when you're obscured only by a creature that is at least one size larger than you. So, when you do the hide action, this is what we were talking about, Sam, is that if you're raging and you take the hide action, again, you still have to use a bonus action to like extend your rage. But if you had selected stealth as that ability where it gets that boost for rage, right? What was that? Primal knowledge. You gain proficiency, another skill. In addition, while you rage is active, you can channel primal power, and then you can make an ability check using one of the skills using strength, even if it normally uses a different ability. So if you are in halfling and you hide, and you could do and you do the stealth check, you're using your strength modifier now to roll for stealth. And you could just hide behind a creature that's at least one size larger than you. That is crazy. What were we talking about before? Yeah, the invisible condition. Yeah, so I feel like this is like think of Laura Kinney from Wolverine or Logan movie, right? A short, chaotic character that's a barbarian that just comes out of nowhere and attacks you. Like, this is actually not, I don't think it's going to be the top species for a barbarian, but I think this would be a top interesting barbarian. Like, I think this would be a very cool barbarian character to do something very, very different, right? Because with the luck, if you roll a 1, you can re-roll it. And it has some nice little boosts here. So probably not the best, but definitely the most interesting. And probably, I would say, most versatile as well, too. All right, human. So when we look at Berserker here, that's a human Berserker. I love the art for Barbarian. I just want to get it all like posters and everything like that. But humans, okay. Medium size, we know that. Interesting, you could do medium or small now, which I appreciate they do that. 30 feet. You have heroic inspiration whenever you finish a long rest. So this is nice that you can always re-roll an attack or damage dice. Pretty much guaranteed at least once a day. You do gain proficiency in one skill of your choice, and you gain an origin feat of your choice. It says skill is recommended. But again, this is kind of like Dwarven Toughness, where you can choose a background that gives you a nice little boost for your Barbarian, and then you get to add another origin feat. So you can do the Tough feat as well as Savage Attacker or Alert, or any of the other ones that seems to really help with Barbarian. So this is a good one as well, too. I feel like this is a good way to build a really powerful Barbarian and tapping into some of these things. I think this might be tied. If I was looking at this and ranking them, I think Goliath would still be probably number 1, maybe tied with Aasimar. Dragonborn is in that second, and Human would be tied with that as well too. So, yeah, it's really hard because there's like pros and cons with all these things. So, it would be less impactful. A Stealth Barb, though, you'd be pushing the damage to other PCs. Damage resistance from Rage would be less impactful. For are we talking about this with Hide? Just because it makes you tougher to hit? Is that what you're saying? I'll wait and see what you say here. If you're hiding, the enemy doesn't know where you are to attack. Yeah. Yep, that is definitely true, but it's also like just a good way where if you want to see, this actually kind of depends on this depends on a few things, right? Because when you are, let's do this here real quick. When you are invisible, right, you do get boom. All right, you get the invisible condition. This can help with initiative, which Barbarians actually already get that at level 7, so it wouldn't be helpful with level 7 at all. But attack rolls against you have disadvantage, and your attacks roll have advantage. So, again, if you're doing reckless, you can not do reckless and have advantage on your first attack. But again, there's a trade-off with that, though, right? I mean, because then you have to hide like every other turn in order to get that sort of bonus. So, yeah. So I think it'll be interesting. Like, again, an interesting tactic that you can use. I definitely think it would be an interesting. I went too far. Hold on. Species. Okay. I think it just gives you interesting options at that point. Like, I think it'd be really cool to look at this and use this a little bit strategic. And the luck really comes in helpful. But yeah, I mean, you're right. Damage resistance from rage would be less impactful. Just because they wouldn't be attacking you, but you're more likely not taking any damage either. So, but yeah, I mean, that would really just be a strategy for like something very specific, because you wouldn't want to do that all the time, because then you're taking more time. You're taking less attacks per combat if you spend an action to hide, and then the next turn you attack, and then the next turn you hide. Like, it kind of defeats that purpose. But if you're in a situation where you're just like, I can't attack for whatever reason, then you could just take the hide action, and you go with that, right? Human's a good one. Orc. Okay, so Orc changed. Orc had a lot of changes from what it was before from half Orc. Adrenaline Rush. You can take dash action as a bonus action. When you do so, you gain a number of temporary hit points equal to your proficiency bonus. And then you can use this a number of times equals to your proficiency bonus, and regain all expended uses when you finish a short or long rest. So this is actually pretty cool, and I think this is a good one to have. If you want to be able to just like boom, boom, boom. But again, you can only do this equal up to your proficiency bonus, right? You have Dark Vision 120 feet. Relentless Endurance. If you get to 0 hit points but not killed outright, you can drop to 1 hit point instead. So this is another way to really be like, hey, I'm not going to go down. So this is a good one why a lot of people like half Orc Barbarians in 2014 for Relentless Endurance. So pretty good. I think if you pick this species, this would be good. I still don't think it would be at my top level if I was ranking these, but it would definitely probably be in the higher mid-range. So, all right, Tiefling. So Tiefling, they have 3 lineages here that you can pick from. You have Dark Vision within 60 feet. You get some supernatural abilities here. Yeah, you can still see that. And then when you reach level 3 and 5, you can do these things. Again, these are going to be spells. Let me read this carefully here. Choose a legacy from this table. Yeah, so these are going to be considered spells. So this will not be helpful in combat. unfortunately. Tieflings are sweet. Look, I love Karlach. Karlach's my favorite character from Baldur's Gate 3. Tiefling Barbarian. Badass, right? But practically speaking, the only trait that they really have that helps them here is Dark Vision, which a lot of species have now. You might be able to use these. Like, you can get... The resistance is always helpful, right? You can get resistance to poison damage, resistance to necrotic damage, resistance to fire damage. That always helps. But if you're raging, you can't use any of these spells. So these would have to be used outside of combat here. So, Karlach is mommy. No comment. Yeah, oddly enough, this is actually a really good spell casting species, or even like, honestly, even for like anything else. But I feel like this is probably the worst one to pick for Barbarian, because a lot of it really hinges on you being able to do the spells. The resistance is good, and narratively, if you want to do this for, you know, the story and all that, I think, again, do what you want to enjoy and what makes you happy with telling the story, right? Like, I don't ever, you know, I don't want to say I don't ever, but I've made decisions where it doesn't make sense or it's not advantageous mechanically, but it makes sense for the story, right? So definitely do what makes sense for your character and the character that you want to play. Goliath is still king. Yeah, that's what we were talking about. So Goliath, for me, Goliath is up there. Human is up there because you do get some really great benefits with heroic inspiration every day. You get another proficiency, and you can pick an origin feat of whatever you want. So that kind of gives that a nice little boost. Always flavor over min-max for sure. I agree 100%. I'm all about that. There's nothing wrong with min-maxing, but I think characters are more interesting when it's more about the challenges they overcome versus how can I do the maximum output every single time, right? But human, I think, is a good one for Barbarian for sure. Ice Swordsman, you missed this, but I was saying Halfling is not the top by any means, but I think it is the most interesting one that you can play as a Barbarian, because we were talking about how you can go through creatures that's a size larger than you. So if you're small, pretty much if any creatures is medium or larger, you can go through them. Luck, you can reroll a 1 on a D20 test anytime. And natural stealthy with that new class feature of... Oh, where is it at? I think it's level 3. Primal knowledge. You can use your strength bonus instead of dexterity for hide to do that. So I think that'd be like an interesting tactic you could do. So again, not the best one, but definitely the most interesting one, I think, for sure. Goliath is one. I would say, like, if you could pick more than one of these, like, you would definitely be unstoppable as a Barbarian, right? Even picking one of these, I think all of these definitely lends itself well to a Barbarian. And we're talking about how with Barbarians, when you're raging, you can't concentrate on the spell and you can't cast a spell. But with Cloud's Jaunt, it says you magically teleport as a bonus action, but it doesn't say you're casting a spell to do that. So the way I would read that, and I think Sam would agree with me as well too, is that you can do this when you're raging. And that would be so, like, imagine you seeing this, like, Barbarian 30 feet away, and then all of a sudden, boom, right in your face, because they teleported as a bonus action, right? Like, I love that. So yeah, I think Goliath is definitely, if it's not 1, it's 2 for sure. Proficiency bonus non-spell Misty Step. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. See, I read it as Misty Step, so that's why I was like, well, I'm not going to pick that one, because I was interpreting it as Misty Step because it says magically teleport. But thanks to Sam pointing out that it specifically says spells. It doesn't say anything about magic, because you can use magic items and you can do all those things as long as you're not casting a spell. So since it doesn't say spell, you can do this when you're raging. So, yeah, so this is awesome. We were talking about how large form, this could be really interesting because if you do Path of the Giant, it kind of butts up a little bit, but you can still strategically plan for this and utilize large form as a species trait and as Path of the Giant as well, too. So, humans are still great for anything and everything. Yeah, honestly, 2014 could care less about playing human. Like, it's so boring. Like, F being human, right? 2024, I'm like, I've already created 3 characters with the human species because I was like, it would be great to grab this origin feat to add to my character and have inspiration every day. So, yeah. Yep, exactly right. Yeah, I agree. So Goliath is definitely up there. Gnome, I think we had said probably not. I think we said there are some benefits, like advantage on intelligence, wisdom, charisma saving throws. I think is really helpful for barbarians because their saving throw proficiencies are in the physical. They don't get that in the like the cognitive, I guess. I mean, charisma is not cognitive necessarily, but the non-physical, I guess. Now, this is advantage. It's not proficiency. So with strength and constitution, you're adding your proficiency bonus. You're not getting advantage on saving throws. I'm pretty sure they didn't change that for 2024. Let me just double check here. Just strength advantage on... No, it's strength saving throws, actually. Yeah. It's concentration you don't get advantage on. So yeah, so that's still really good for only that though. Like everything else is like, not great. Speak with animals might be a good one if you're doing Wild Heart and you want to have an option to cast that spell outside of combat to speed up talking to animals, or even like any other subclass. So like that's a nice one. Like these are like nice outside ones, but definitely not one I would pick for, advantages or anything like that. It would definitely be more of a narrative purpose for it. Yes. Elf. I think I said with Elf, this is the worst one for Barbarian. I play a half Elf for the 2014 game I'm in. I don't think I really get a whole lot of benefits from that other than some of the things that I like about human, that I also like about elves. Like I get some of that like dark vision and stuff like that. But again, that's more narrative. Mechanically, elf really has not a whole lot of advantages that you can use in this, basically, So like outside of combat, yes, absolutely. Inside of combat, the speed increase if you do wood elf, the advantage for charm condition, proficiency in one of these senses, like not bad. I would still probably do gnome over elf, to be honest, because I think that's still going to be more interesting. I think there's going to be more advantages to doing that. So elf is definitely, boom, at the bottom of my list. Dwarf Barbarian is one of the most, the oldest combinations that we've seen in Dungeons and Dragons, right? So having Dwarven Resilience is helpful. We're talking about Dwarven Toughness. This can be a good one to allow you to pick a different origin feat, or if you want to get the tough feat and add both of these on there and kind of boost up your hit points even more, you can do that. Stone Cunning, I'm not a fan of Stone Cunning. I feel like that's a very specific thing that you could definitely use, but like the DM would have to really be intentional about it. I mean, there are situations that'll come up like regularly for sure, but I still think it's like one of those like, I can see people forgetting about that, So dwarf, yes. I don't think it. I think it might be tied for human, for sure. Maybe right below human. But then we get Dragonborn and Aasimar. I think Dragonborn would be third. So Aasimar. Yeah, this is really hard. Like I think it really depends on the subclass you're going with, right? Because I was talking about how Aasimar would be great for Path of the Wild Heart, because then you get that resistance to necrotic and radiant damage that Wild Heart removed from 2014. So you can use that and take Path of the Bear to kind of make up for it, and then you're really, hard to hit. And then Sam made a good point. This is a magic action, but it's not a spell to do Healing Hands. So you could do this while you're raging to yourself or to somebody else. And then you can use some more damage output with Inner Radiance and Necrotic Shroud as well too. So I feel like Aasimar is definitely one of the top ones there. Goliath is probably Aasimar and Goliath are tied for first. And then after that, it would be Human and Dragonborn. Dwarf is a close fifth. Very, very close. Orc, I think, would be right under Dwarf. Because Orc has some really cool ones. I don't think it's going to be as... maybe Orc and Dwarf is tied. So, but Tiefling is definitely last. Tiefling and Elf. Yeah, because here's the thing. It's like with Elf, like it's pretty much... I think Tiefling is still worse because with Elf, you still get some benefits like advantage on saving throws for Charm. You get this still. Trance is still good. But Tiefling, the only thing you get that's really helpful in combat, at least, is Dark Vision. But all these other things are spells, so that's the only thing that you get. These are probably good ones for outside of combat, but like when you use Ray of Sickness outside of combat, so it gets, yeah. So I think Tiefling's still probably the worst choice for Barbarian, followed up by Elf. Because at least Elf, you get some small things that would definitely be helpful in those regards. So, yeah. All right. Yeah. So, those are some hard ones. I think it just comes down to what kind of character you want to play for your story and what subclass, because I think subclass could definitely make a huge benefit as well, too, because especially when you have choices like Goliath, when you can pick the specific lineage of giant to get that benefit, I think that would definitely make a difference on which subclass you pick. I think Halfling and even Gnome, I think those two would be very, very interesting. They're not the best ones by far, but I think they would definitely make them very interesting characters to play for sure. So, yeah. But yeah, so I'm kind of curious. I like to do this. Maybe we might try to do this for other classes and see like what species would make a lot of sense, or maybe we could go back to Barbarian and see like which classes. I'm not classes. Sorry, which backgrounds would work well with it for next stream, because I think that'd be a lot of fun to talk about too, and kind of figure out what would be some advantages there, right? For example, I am playing a human cleric. And I specifically picked a background where... No. As a human, I get to pick a origin fee of my choice. I specifically picked Wizard for my cleric because then I could pick up True Strike, which has been fixed from 2014. So now I'm using True Strike to hit with my Morningstar, my weapon, because I'm doing War Domain for cleric, which is really focused on being able to cast spells, but also doing, combat attacks and melee range and stuff like that, because you get the really cool thing of you can use a bonus action, I think, up to your either modifier or proficiency bonus. I forget which one. I think it's modifier. And you can use a bonus action to hit with your weapon. But as your main action, you can use True Strike, and that will add a nice little boost to your attack and to your damage. So I think it's a lot of fun to think about looking at what would be cool as a mechanic that you probably haven't thought about before for those sort of things. So, yeah. So anyway, thanks for joining me on this. This was spontaneous. Hopefully this was fun to talk about. I had a lot of fun talking to you all about this. I think this is really interesting to think through. As always, hearing from you all about this is really helpful, especially Sam. Sam is always great to point out, actually it says this, because sometimes I'm making some assumptions, but when you read it, you're oh yeah. So it's good for me to do these things because this gives me a chance to actually pay attention to some of these things and not just assuming things, So it's good to have that feedback to make sure that I'm reading these correctly. So, all right. I don't know when I'll do this again, but hopefully I'll do it soon. So thanks for joining, and I'll talk to y'all later. Thanks.